ほら、ルフィ、今一緒に海賊になる仲間を探してるんだ。
Hello guys, welcome to my channel The Wandering Zoro, your go-to destination for anime-related content. And if you're new here, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss out on our latest videos. In today's video, we're going to be diving into part 3 of the series What If Izuku Met the Shadow Monarch and Gained His Powers. So be sure to stick around until the end, and let's get started. Kamino Ward, Battlefield. Class 3A helped with saving people, rescuing trapped civilians, and some are just watching at the carnage going on. What the heck happened here? Mina Ashido asked, looking at the carnage in front of them. Upon them, mountain upon mountains for dead bodies of D-lister villains, food soldiers of the League of Villains. They're all dead, not one of them is breathing. Momo Yaoyorozu added, while puking out her lunch. Yamamoto, you okay? Her best friend Jiro asked. Why yeah, I'm fine, just disoriented. Who could have caused all of this? She pukes more at the sight of dismembered bodies of villains. A white blur goes past them, with streaks of white lightning. Who's that? Sato asked, pointing at the figure. Wait, isn't that Black Whip part of Midoriya's quirk? Momo eyed the figure wheel. She's floating too, so she is float. Then that lightning arcs that Midoriya has when his quirk enters full cowling state. She analyzed. Finally found the beach. Deku passed the quirk too, but Bakugo whispered to himself. Then a huge smirk dawned on his face. You don't deserve that beach. One for all is mine. I'll make sure of it, he said while using his explosion to go after Astrid. Hey, where you going, Bakugo? Mina shouts. Go after him. I swear he'll do something dumb. Shoto commanded his classmates. Ida, go first. You're the fastest, he added. Got it. Ida didn't hesitate and sprinted towards Bakugo. Scene change. Back with Izuku and his fight with All For One with Shigaraki. All For One already lost his right arm. Is that fear? Is the symbol of fear scared of the former successor of One For All? Izuku shouts, while ignoring All For One and going after Shigaraki. Come at me, BSDRD. This time my quirk will work on you. Shigaraki prepared himself. You lost something, Shigaraki? Izuku taunted while waving Shigaraki's left arm. Arc, you BSDRD, you took my arm. Izuku dodged an attack from All For One, who was going for his head. Too transparent, old man. He then summoned his twin shadow daggers and cut All For One in the chest. Why you demed boy? You'll regret ever going against me. Izuku side-eyed. I doubt that. With a living fossil like you, I'm not regretting anything. Izuku spat. Yo, All For One was about to speak. Nice heart, All For One. Too dark, though. Izuku crushed All For One's heart within his hand. My heart, he said, groaning in pain as his heart was crushed. You don't need it. A heartless person like you doesn't deserve a heart. As Izuku, using his left hand, punched All For One to a building. You're going to pay for killing Sensei, Shigaraki shouted, then rushed towards Izuku. Izuku let it happen. You can't disintegrate a shadow, do better. Izuku coldly spoke. Before taking Shigaraki by the right arm and flinging him to the same building, he sent All For One. Amateurs, I train with Sir Igris, and Baru, you can't even scratch me, he said before slowly walking to where he sent the two villains. You two still alive in there? He sarcastically asked. I guess no. A swift motion, a blur as Izuku looks down. An arm was through his chest as he looked at his beating heart. You die, boy. You're hundreds of years too young to defeat me. You're weak. All For One, with his arm through Izuku's chest. He spoke it trying to taunt Izuku, who was bleeding from his gaping chest. Too young? Sure, but weaker? Hell no. Izuku said, as his gaping chest immediately healed, like he was never stabbed. Impossible, even if you have the embers left. There's no healing quirk within One For All. All For One saw Izuku smirk at the two of them. Didn't I told you already? Death doesn't appreciate you slipping away. I am his soldier. I am the upcoming general that serves the Shadow Monarch. Izuku throws a haymaker punch at All For One, as his body already starts to give out on him. The stress that his regeneration quirk already reaching its exhaustion. I can't afford another mishap. I'll die by the next blow this kid gives out. All For One was trying to make a plan, as his eyes landed on Shigaraki. MSTR, what are you planning? His student asked, as All For One lunged at him. Then Choke holds him from the back. You. If you get any closer, the grandson of Nana Shimura dies, he said. All for One still grasping Shigaraki's neck. Do I look like I give a damn in what happens to that crusty bestiarty? Izuku lunged and pierced his entire through Shigaraki's chest, and it got out towards All for One's chest too, impaling the two. You son of a bit. Shigaraki fell down the moment Izuku retracted his arms out of Shigaraki's chest. You didn't even hesitate. What kind of monster are you? All for One shouts. You're next. Izuku's eyes glows emerald brightly then. He put All for One in a chokehold. You can't kill me. I am the Demon King. He yelled as Izuku sharply looks at him. You're no Demon King. Izuku slowly takes All for One's spine out of his body. You am monster. All for One's last words were of pain, as Izuku took out his spine out of his miserable body. You are a spineless bestiarty, Izuku said, almost laughing from his own joke, before looking away, and he started walking, with hands in his pockets. Scene change. Astrid was flying, using float and air cannons for propulsion, as she tries to find some more villains. Danger sense activated abruptly, and she dodged an explosion mid-flight. What's your deal? She yelled, seeing the perpetrator was a dirty, ash-blonde Pomeranian with a permanent scowl on his face. I found you, Beach. So that pathetic Deku gave you one for all. Astrid raised an eyebrow, confused, littering her face. She knows one for all, but what's a Deku? She asked, still confused. Quit fing with me, he yelled in frustration. Gross, no, I have a boyfriend. She punched Katsuki in the gut, causing him to be sent back towards Ida, crashing into the engine quirk user. What's your deal? Why did he suddenly attack me? Her lightning arcs grew in volumes. Excuse me, we're sorry for our classmate attacking you out of nowhere. Astrid nodded at Ida, while she crossed her arms. Looking down at the unconscious body of Katsuki, she's unconcerned about him. Put him on a leash next TI. Izuku then appeared, using shadow like wings to fly to her level. It's been a while, how are you guys? Izuku said, earning a confused reaction from his former classmates. Do we know you by chance? Shoto added, while Izuku sighed. Mr. Broke my arms? Recovery girl's most broken patient? Anyone? They pondered on it for a moment, until Denki, the dumbest of the group, arrived at a single conclusion. Midoriya? Denki Kaminari yelled, as everyone's eyes widened. The one and only. Now if you excuse us, my girlfriend and I have to go. Izuku wrapped his arm around Astrid's waist. Midoriya, wait. Almost everyone there pleaded. Chow as they disappeared into the shadows and popped back up 100 meters away from the group. Now let's see my quest rewards. Notification, main quest, hidden quest, and grade quest have been accomplished by the Shadow Soldier. Izuku Midoriya's rewards have been sent to his inventory. A card pass for 1 hour limited time astral body projection of Inko Midoriya has been added to the inventory and is bookmarked. You have now ascended to General Grade Shadow Soldier. You have been given a job. Overseer. You have assimilated Antares Fragment. Congratulations, Izuku Midoriya. Finally, scene change. After that whole fiasco, Izuku and Astrid had returned to their humble abode. Arise. Izuku summoned Kaisel, his trusted dragon. Kaisel, I want you to visit the Iterum world that our liege had given me rights to be an overseer. He said. Yes, General. The dragon spoke, the very first time he did, since at first he has no respect for Izuku. Now Izuku's a general, he has his utmost respect for Izuku, and with that the dragon retreated back into shadows. I wonder what's on that world. I hope it's something exciting. But before that, Izuku's eyes glowed emerald, as his tone became serious. I still have things to settle. You almost hurt my girlfriend. We have some unfinished business. Kaken, not playfully, not one that promises nothing but pain. He's out for Katsuki's BLD, for almost hurting Astrid. Izuku and Astrid's cave. The cave was warm from the little fire Izuku had built, crackling in the corner. Astrid sat cross-legged with her phone out, leaning close to Izuku while snapping picture after picture. Okay, smile normally this time, Astrid said, holding the phone up. Izuku puffed his cheeks and squinted his eyes like he was constipated. Astrid burst out laughing, nearly dropping the phone. That's not normal. You look like a toddler throwing a tantrum. Look who's talking. And it's my normal face. Izuku shot back with a straight face before breaking into a grin. Astrid shoved him lightly in the shoulder. You're ridiculous. From the back of the cave, the shadows stood at attention. Or, well, most of them did. A couple of them couldn't help but whisper. Is that really our general? One of the night-looking shadows asked, tilting his head. Yeah, said a goblin shadow, scratching his chin. Pretty sure it's the same guy who chopped those villains into pieces like a blender. Now what is he even doing? Pouting for pictures? Another shadow soldier leaned forward. He killed the strongest person in this world in a few minutes, and now he's making fish faces for a blonde girl with a phone. The goblin snorted. What a downgrade. Back at the fire, Astrid was trying to angle the phone for a couple shot. She leaned against Izuku. Okay, this one's cute. No dumb faces. Izuku smiled softly, his arms slipping around her shoulders. Fine, but if this ends up online, I'm blaming you. Astrid grinned. Please, no one's ever gonna believe the great, scary shadow vigilante makes goofy selfies with his girlfriend. One of the shadows muttered, yeah, no kidding. The night shadow sighed. Guess even monsters have date nights. The goblin chuckled. Honestly, kinda respect it. The soldiers went quiet again, watching their terrifying general pose for another photo, this time with bunny ears behind Astrid's head. F off, you stupid shadows. Quit lounging around and pick those weapons up. Izuku yelled in fury at his lazy shadows. Run, beach. The goblin shadow yelled as he was picked up by the knight as they ran away. Get back here, you lousy shadows. Izuku and Astrid's cave. The fire popped in the corner, its glow stretching across the cave walls. Astrid sat with her phone in hand, still giggling at the last set of selfies. Then she noticed a figure stepping out from the shadows. Her laughter stopped short. Izuku was draped in a long cloak of black, trimmed in gold and purple, the hood pulled low over his eyes. The outfit clung like armor, yet flowed like smoke around him. For a moment, Astrid didn't recognize him at all. She whistled. Well, that's new. He tilted his head slightly, a grin tugging at his lips beneath the hood. Too much, babe? Astrid stood, circling him like she was inspecting a weapon. Too much? You look like you're about to conquer a Viking village. Where did you even get this? Made it, Izuku admitted, tugging at one of the straps across his chest. Took some ideas from games, honestly, from assassin characters, patched the rest together, thought it might help with the image. Astrid pressed her finger against the chest plate. Help with the image? You look bloody terrifying. People will take one look at you and run like cowards. She smirked, her voice slipping into the sharp edge of her Viking roots. You look like hell's BSDRD come to drag souls. Izuku raised a brow at the insult, though the grin on his face didn't fade. That's not exactly a compliment, babe. Astrid laughed, giving him a playful shove. Oh, don't whine, you oaf. It suits you. You look like someone I'd follow into a village raid. From the back of the cave, the shadows began to stir. A goblin soldier whispered, That's our general? He looks like the final boss. The knight beside him nodded, sounding impressed. This is more like it. No silly faces. Just intimidation, masculine. Another soldier snorted. Give him 5 minutes, he'll be back to posing. Izuku spinned back and glared at them. PSS off, NPC shadows. He yelled at his soldiers. Astrid folded her arms, shaking her head. All right, dramatic boy, spin around. Let me see the whole thing. He rolled his eyes but gave a slow turn, the cloak flaring slightly at the edges. Happy? She grinned, her accent thickening as she barked out a laugh. Aye, but if you ever show up to a feast looking like that, I'll call you a thrice-med fool and make you sit outside. Izuku chuckled, pulling the hood lower. Noted. The shadows fell quiet again, unsure if they were supposed to fear the figure in front of them or remember the same man who had been pulling goofy faces for Astrid just an hour before. You're heading out again, Astrid said. It wasn't really a question. Her voice carried that blunt Viking edge, equal parts worry and challenge. Izuku nodded. Yeah, the league's gone, and all for one with them, but that doesn't mean it's over. There are still villains out there running around, hurting people. If I sit here doing nothing, what was the point of all of this? Astrid frowned, clicking her tongue. Bah? You sound like some self-righteous BSDRD of a chieftain. But she pushed off the wall and stepped closer. I know you. You wouldn't be you if you just stayed behind. Izuku gave her a faint smile, then lifted his hand. Shadows rippled across the floor like water, spreading across the cave. The air grew cold, and from the darkness a massive wolf emerged, its fur made of swirling black mist. It padded forward, claws clicking on the stone, then raised its head and stepped onto the air itself like it was solid ground. Rarf MSTR. Izuku sighed at his wolf. He named Regis since this wolf has the personality of a bad-mouthed delinquent. The wolf's glowing eyes fixed on Izuku, its tail swishing slowly. It let out a low growl that shook the cave, but there was no malice in it, only loyalty. Astrid raised her brows, impressed. By the gods, that's new. A wolf that walks the air? You're trying to one-up yourself every DMN time, aren't you? Yup, new pup here. Stole him from my liege. Since you like cute things, the moment I got back to the Shadow Realm, I took this puppy with me, without my liege knowing. Izuku reached out, running a hand over the creature's smoky mane before climbing onto its back. The cloak settled around him as he looked down at Astrid. I'll be back before you know it, babe. She smirked, though her voice carried a bite. If you get yourself killed, I'll drag your sorry ghost back and thrash you until you beg for hell's mercy. He chuckled. Noted the wolf howled once, the sound echoing off the cave walls, then leapt upward. Its paws landed on nothing, climbing higher and higher into the night sky as if running on invisible paths. Astrid watched until the shadows faded, leaving only silence in the cave. Honestly, you're just the standard of a man that any woman could wish for, she said while looking at the place where Izuku was previously. She lightly rubbed her stomach lovingly. Am I ready to give it to him? To be a mother. My god, you're PRGNNT Scythe Maiden. A shocked shadow soldier yelled. Get your muttonhead, boarhead out of my business. Astrid yelled in surprise. Astrid stared at the photo on her phone, her heart skipping like it had no business doing. She pinched the screen to zoom in. First at herself, cheeks pink, eyes softer than she ever remembered them being, then at him. Izuku's face was caught mid-grimace, purple sparks crackling along his freckles, making him look both ridiculous and somehow unfairly cute. Oh, Thor's hammer, she whispered, her lips twitching into a smile she couldn't fight back. We actually look like a couple. Her stomach fluttered. A couple. The thought made her want to bury her face in her hands and squeal, but instead, she hugged the phone to her chest, rolling onto her back against the cool stone floor of the cave. She kicked her legs once, just once, like some giddy maiden back in Burke, before catching herself and forcing her foot down. Pull yourself together, Astrid, she muttered, though her grin only grew wider. Still, her gaze flicked back to the screen, drinking in the sight of Izuku's wild hair, those bright eyes, and the way his arm was locked around her shoulder like she belonged there. And the truth was, she liked belonging there. She bit her lip, cheeks warming as she whispered to herself, Gods, I think I'm in trouble. I'm still new to this whole relationship thing. The battle-hardened damsel spoke. The shadows rippled as Izuku stepped out of the void and into a back alley of Shinjuku. The city was loud, alive with neon and chatter, but the alley stank of rust and sweat. Ahead, for men circled a trembling shop owner, their quirks flickering like weak sparks in the dark. Izuku didn't hesitate. The wolf of shadow materialized beneath him, launching forward with silent ferocity. The first thug didn't even see him coming before a fist wrapped in darkness slammed into his gut, sending him crashing into a dumpster. The second raised his arms, electricity sparking, but the shadows swallowed the light, chains of purple-black slamming him against the wall. Who the hell? The third stammered, stumbling back. His voice cracked, fear seeping in as Izuku's glowing eyes locked onto him. Izuku said nothing, words weren't needed. The man turned to run, only to find the wolf already there, massive jaws open in a silent snarl. He froze, knees buckling, then collapsed in surrender. The fourth tried to be brave, lunging with a knife glowing faintly red. Izuku caught his wrist mid-swing, twisted, and with a flick of his shadows sent the man sprawling, unconscious before he even hit the ground. The shop owner gasped, clutching his chest. Why, you saved me, thank you. Who are you? But when he looked up again, Izuku was gone. Only the faint shimmer of shadows remained, curling into the darkness of the rooftops above, where the vigilante stood silently watching. His gaze swept over the city that stretched endlessly before him. Even without the League, even without All for One, the rot of villainy still seeped through its cracks. Izuku tightened his fists, the purple light of his power pulsing with quiet resolve. This is my battlefield now. As he disappeared, the smell of burning reached every corner of the cave. Not the comforting smoke of a campfire, but the bitter, acrid tang of something being utterly destroyed. Astrid stood over the pot she had sworn she could manage. The stew inside had turned into a thick black sludge, bubbling like tar in a forge. She fanned at the smoke, her cheeks pink from heat and frustration. "Oh, how in the 9 realms do you burn stew?" she hissed, jabbing the spoon helplessly. A pop echoed from the pot, followed by a tongue of fire leaping upward. Astrid yelped, swatting it with the spoon until embers scattered across the stone. From the shadows along the cave wall, armored figures stepped forth. Knights of darkness, their swords at their sides, glowing eyes fixed on the scene. They stood in a line, every movement deliberate, as though assessing a battlefield. One knelt, placing a gauntlet fist to his chest. His voice echoed like steel in a cavern. "Scythe Maiden, your valor is unquestioned, but the pot has claimed victory this day." Astrid spun, spoon in hand like a weapon. "Don't you start with me." Another knight stepped forward, bowing his head solemnly. "It is as we feared. The stew has fallen beyond salvation. Shall we commit it to the flames?" Astrid groaned, dragging her hands down her face. "I don't need commentary. I need food." The third knight, his tone calm and deliberate, raised a hand toward the smoldering pot. "We advise a tactical retreat." Scythe Maiden, the smoke grows stronger by the moment. Astrid glared at them all, her pride wounded deeper than any blade could cut. "You knights face monsters without flinching, but me trying to cook is what shakes your faith?" The first knight inclined his head ever so slightly. "Not fear, Scythe Maiden, familiarity. This is not the first defeat you have suffered against stew." Her jaw dropped. "You keep track of this." They bowed as one, shadows rippling with silent dignity, though the faintest hint of amusement lingered in their glowing eyes. Astrid stomped her foot, pointing at the pot. "Fine. Next time Izuku comes back, he's cooking. And you." She jabbed the spoon at them. "Not a word of this leaves the cave." The knights struck their chests in salute. "As you command." Yet as they faded back into the shadows, the faint clink of armor sounded suspiciously like stifled laughter. Bakugo third-person POV. The dorm's common room was quiet except for the drone of the late-night news. Grainy, shaky footage played again on the screen, a blonde girl plowing through a gang of low-level villains, each strike of her fists leaving craters in concrete. Her armor looked mismatched and old-fashioned, almost medieval, and a battered axe hung at her side like something out of a museum. The anchor's voice followed, steady and curious. "Many are speculating about the origins of this mysterious vigilante. Some viewers claim her strength resembles that of a former UA student, Izuku Midoriya, who nearly won at the sports festival before leaving school under unclear circumstances. At this time, no official confirmation has been made." Bakugo's teeth ground so hard his jaw ached. He didn't even realize his palms were sparking until the couch cushion beside him smoldered. That girl. That blonde foreigner in her weird Viking getup. That was his power. It had to be. One for All wasn't something you could mistake. It was a freight train packed into a punch, the kind of raw, explosive strength that shook the bones of anyone who watched it. And Deku's shitty, spineless, crybaby Deku had given it away. To her, Bakugo snarled, standing so fast the table rattled. "Some foreigner. Some blonde chick in dumb cosplay armor gets it instead of me." His voice cracked like thunder through the dorm, making a couple classmates flinch. He paced like a caged animal, fists clenched so tight the skin split across his knuckles. Who even is she? What is this? Deku runs away and plays vigilante with some random blonde beach, and then. His words choked off into a furious growl. He had one job. One DMN job. Pass it to me. Not her. The news replayed Astrid's blurred face again, her hair swinging as she landed a punch that split the pavement like a meteor strike. To anyone else, it was impressive. To Bakugo, it was blasphemy. He slammed his fist into the wall, plaster cracking beneath. The blast. Deku, you absolute bestiardi. You really think this makes you better than me? That running off and dumping that power on some foreign nobody proves you're stronger? His chest heaved, breath ragged, sparks snapping off his palms. But beneath the fury, something cold spread in his gut. Something he'd never admit aloud. Because deep down, what burned the most wasn't that Midoriya had passed one for all away. It was that, when the time came, he hadn't even thought of Bakugo. Ochako Uraraka, third-person POV. Ochako lingered in the hallway, heart hammering as Bakugo's voice thundered through the dorm. That nerd gave it to her. Some foreign blonde in Viking cosplay, and not me. His explosions rattled the walls, sparks flying as he stormed in circles. She pressed a hand to her chest, breath shaky. The anger in his voice cut deep, not just because it was about Izuku, but because of how much it still mattered to him. Ochako bit her lip, sorrow twisting her. Izuku was gone, yet his shadow still lived between them. She turned away before he noticed her, eyes stinging. Sometimes, being Bakugo's girlfriend felt less like holding him and more like holding the space Izuku left behind inside her heart. Time skip. The newsfeed flickered across the Heights Alliance lounge, showing shaky phone footage. A figure cloaked in darkness blurred between alleys, villains collapsing in his wake. His eyes glowed faintly in the blur, his chest pulsing with some unnatural purple light. Another sighting of the vigilante known as Shadow the Anchor droned. Authorities remain uncertain if he is hero or villain, but his actions leave a trail of death in their wake. Viewers are advised to stay clear. The students shifted uneasily. Mina hugged a pillow close. Creepy. Seriously creepy. He doesn't even look human in that footage. Kirishima scratched his head. Yeah, but he's only hitting villains, right? Doesn't that count for something? Heroes don't leave bodies behind, Tokoimi said darkly, folding his arms. Todoroki leaned forward, eyes fixed on the grainy frame. The power he's using, I've never seen anything like it. Jairu tilted her head, earjacks twitching. It almost looks like shadows themselves are fighting with him. The speculation died when Aizawa stepped into the lounge, scarf trailing behind him. His eyes swept across the screen before settling on his class. So, you've all seen it. His tone was as flat as ever, but there was an edge to it. Sensei Ida said quickly, standing stiff as always. If this shadow continues his rampage, doesn't that place him in direct opposition to the law? He looks like a vigilante, but his brutality goes beyond. Stop. Aizawa's voice cut sharp. Don't waste time trying to label him. Hero, villain, vigilante. The truth is simpler. He's dangerous. Whoever he is. The students exchanged uneasy looks. Ochako bit her lip, hugging her knees. Shadow. The name alone sent a chill crawling up her spine. Whoever he was, she couldn't shake the feeling that he wasn't just some faceless monster. He felt familiar, but she didn't speak it aloud. Not yet. The television looped again, showing Shadow's blurred silhouette vanishing into the night. No one in the room could say who he was. No one could imagine that the boy they once called classmate now bore that name whispered with fear across Japan. Meanwhile, someone took notice. To the girl that's been appearing after they all saw her and Izuku together. She has Midoriya's quirk? Someone whispered. Izuku and Astrid's cave. Izuku stepped into the cave, brushing soot from his coat as the heavy stone door sealed shut behind him. He inhaled and immediately coughed. Babe, what smells funny? The armored knights were already waiting, lined up like sentinels. Without hesitation, every single gauntlet pointed at Astrid. She stood by the hearth with a pot of blackened something, her face burning red. Don't look at me like that. It was going fine until it wasn't. One knight lowered his head reverently. My general, the Scythe Maiden has fought valiantly against Stu once more. Alas, victory was not hers. Shut up. Astrid hurled a wooden spoon at him. It bounced off the knight's helm with a dull clink. Izuku chuckled and walked over, crouching to peek into the pot. He immediately grimaced, waving the smoke away. Babe, I think this stew achieved sentience. It's glaring at me. Astrid groaned and collapsed onto their bedding of furs, covering her face with her hands. I just wanted to do something nice for you. Every time I try, it ends in smoke or fire. I can't even make soup. The knights fell respectfully silent, fading back into the shadows as Izuku sat beside her. He gently pulled her hands away from her face, his thumb brushing over her cheek. Hey, he said softly, voice warm in contrast to the cold armor that surrounded them. You don't have to cook for me. You've already given me more than I could ever ask for your trust, your strength, your heart. Do you know how much that means to me? Her blue eyes softened, and she tried to look away, embarrassed. But Izuku leaned closer, resting his forehead against hers. Babe, he whispered, I don't care if you burn every pot in Japan. You're enough, just the way you are. Astrid's lips trembled before curving into a small, sheepish smile. You're too good at this, you know. Izuku chuckled and kissed her forehead, pulling her into his arms. She sank against him, soot still clinging to her hair, but he didn't care. To him, she was perfect even if the stew wasn't. Behind them, a knight muttered under his breath. Truly, love is more fearsome than her cooking. Astrid threw a pillow at the shadows without even looking. Izuku laughed, holding her tighter. Shut up, Clanker. She spat with venom before taking her scythe and sending it flying to the night after she threw the pillow. The cave was quiet, the fire reduced to faint embers that glowed against the stone. Wrapped in furs, Astrid slept peacefully, her head resting just beneath Izuku's chin. His arms circled her waist, holding her close as if the world outside might try to steal her away. Her breathing was steady, calm. Every now and then she shifted, her fingers curling lightly against his chest, as though she instinctively sought him even in dreams. Izuku smiled faintly, closing his eyes for a moment just to memorize the warmth of her back against him, the scent of her hair, the comfort of knowing she was here and not some fading illusion. For someone who had spent most of his life chasing strength, it was strange how the simplest thing holding her made him feel the strongest. At the foot of their bedding, Regis, their tiny wolf shadow, had curled into a ball. The little creature's chest rose and fell with soft, almost childlike snores, a faint purple glow flickering from the flame-shaped tuft of energy on his head. Izuku let out a quiet chuckle. Some guard dog you are, Regis, he whispered to himself. But he didn't mind. For the first time in a long time, he wasn't afraid. With Astrid in his arms and Regis keeping them company, even the Shadow General is at peace. He pressed a gentle kiss to Astrid's temple, careful not to wake her. Good night, babe, he murmured. And for once, the shadows around him seemed to rest as well. Time skip morning. Astrid stirred faintly, the first rays of dawn filtering through the cracks in the cave wall. She groaned softly and rolled over, expecting to find the familiar warmth of furs and shadows. Instead, when her eyes blinked open, she was greeted by green hair, freckles, and a pair of wide teal eyes hovering just above her own. Morning, Izuku whispered, his voice warm with mischief. Astrid froze, her heart leaping into her throat. He was so close that their noses nearly brushed, his breath tickling her lips. Heat rushed to her cheeks, her Viking composure crumbling in an instant. G-gods above, Izuku, what are you doing? He smiled sheepishly, leaning down just a little more. Waking you up. Thought I'd try something different. Astrid's eyes flickered to his lips, then back to his eyes. She meant to scold him, truly, but her pulse betrayed her, hammering in her chest loud enough that even he could probably feel it. Different, you say? She managed, her voice lower than intended. Izuku's grin softened, his teasing melting into something gentler. Yeah, different. But only for you, babe. Before she could gather another word, he brushed his lips against hers in the lightest of kisses, soft, quick, but enough to set her whole face aflame. Astrid let out a surprised gasp, then promptly grabbed the front of his shirt and pulled him back down for a second kiss, firmer this time. When they finally broke apart, breath mingling, Astrid glared at him half-heartedly. That's a dangerous way to wake a warrior, you know? Izuku chuckled, resting his forehead against hers. Worth the risk. Her lips curved into a small smile, her blush refusing to fade. Then don't stop doing it. And just like that, the morning was theirs. They better not start FC Kanji while I'm still acting asleep. Regis shuddered at the thought. Morning, outside the cave. The sea stretched endlessly before them, painted gold and crimson by the setting sun. Waves lapped against the rocks far below, their rhythm steady and soothing. Izuku sat cross-legged on the stone ledge outside the cave, cradling a steaming tin cup between his hands. Beside him, Astrid leaned against his shoulder, her own cup resting in her lap. The scent of roasted beans mingled with the salty air, simple but comforting. You know, Astrid murmured, her eyes on the horizon, this coffee's good, but I'll always prefer Viking mead. Nothing warms you like that. Izuku chuckled softly. Strange, huh? You finally admit coffee isn't perfect. His grin widened as he slipped a hand into the shadows at his side. When it emerged, he held a dusty bottle of wine, the glass catching the last rays of sunset. Not mead, but maybe this will do? Astrid blinked, then laughed a bright, unrestrained sound that echoed across the cliffside. You really thought ahead, didn't you? Always, babe, always. He said simply, uncorking the bottle. She leaned closer, eyes gleaming as the first stars dotted the sky. Together, they traded coffee for wine, sipping slowly as dusk gave way to night. I love you, Izuku, Astrid spoke, her lips curled into a smile, while looking at Izuku whom gazed back at her. I love you too, Astrid, he replied, sincerely, to the woman who made his heart beat, the woman who destroyed his loneliness. Outside the cave, the morning sun filtered weakly into the cave, throwing long streaks of gold across the stone. Outside, Izuku was already in motion, each strike of his fist sharp, deliberate, shadows twisting and curling around him as if pulled by every movement. Astrid sat at the cave's entrance, knees drawn to her chest. Her eyes followed him, but her thoughts drifted elsewhere. Could it be true? Am I really? Her hand pressed lightly against her stomach. The uncertainty gnawed at her, a weight she hadn't yet dared to put into words. The air shifted. The shadows behind her deepened unnaturally, folding into one another until a tall figure stepped out. Dark hair, sharp eyes, a presence that made the world itself seem to still. Sung Jinwoo. Astrid's fingers closed around the handle of her scythe, but she froze when his gaze met hers. His voice cut through the silence, soft yet unshakable. Your child grows within you. You kids sure did get busy, huh? Her breath stopped. The scythe slipped from her hand and clattered onto the stone floor. She whipped her head toward him, but he was already gone, swallowed back into the darkness as if he had never been there. Only the echo of his words remained. Astrid pressed a trembling hand against her stomach again, her heart racing so violently she thought it might break through her ribs. I'm really belly full, which is a term for PRGNT in the era of Vikings, while outside Izuku's fist struck the air, unaware of the storm that had just bloomed inside her chest. Meanwhile, the cave's darkness stirred again, but not in a way Astrid or Izuku could notice. Deeper in the folds of shadow, a quiet world lingered, a place where time did not matter. Sung Jinwoo stood there, his figure half lit by the faint purple glow of the realm. Beside him, Cha Heian materialized, her presence soft and warm, her golden aura brushing against the endless dark like sunlight breaking through storm clouds. Her eyes fixed on Astrid, trembling hands pressed against her stomach. She's scared, Cha murmured, her tone tinged with empathy at the upcoming mother. She doesn't know what to do. Jinwoo's gaze followed Astrid for a long moment before shifting toward Izuku outside, fists driving forward with grim determination. He exhaled through his nose, not in disappointment, but in quiet understanding. They're just kids, he said at last, his voice steady. Thrown into battles, loss, power, and now this. No one ever taught them how to live, only how to fight. He tilted his head toward Cha, his lips curving faintly. Remind you of anyone? Cha's soft laugh was like music against the stillness. She slipped her arm through his, leaning gently against him. We weren't much different. Lost, stumbling, trying to hold on to each other while the world kept testing us. Jinwoo glanced down at her, a small warmth flickering in his dark eyes. And we made it through. Together. Cha's gaze returned to Astrid, her expression tender. That girl will need someone. Not to fight for her, but to remind her she doesn't have to carry it alone. If she tries, it'll break her. You want to guide her? Jinwoo said, though it wasn't a question. I do. She needs me. She needs someone who's already has experience of being a mother. Cha admitted with a quiet nod. She deserves to know what it means to be a mother without being crushed by fear. Even if it's only through whispers in her dreams, or little nudges when she feels lost. I'll be there. Jinwoo's arm tightened slightly around her shoulders. That's why I call you my light, dear. For a heartbeat, silence stretched between them, two figures of shadow and warmth watching the pair outside, who still had no idea of the road ahead. Then, as suddenly as they had come, the monarch and his wife faded back into the darkness, leaving no trace behind. Only Astrid remained, clutching her stomach, and Izuku outside, unaware that both of them were already under the quiet watch of two who had once walked the same path. Meanwhile, the shadows stirred again. This time, it wasn't some grand monarch's entrance, but a far more casual stride. Sung Suho appeared, straight-backed, but grinning ear to ear. Father, Mother thought I'd introduce my girlfriend. Behind him stepped a slim figure with long white hair and pointed ears, dressed in simple robes. Her features were youthful, almost childlike, like a girl barely past her teens. She blinked slowly, saying nothing, her expression as unreadable as a stone wall. Jinwoo's eyes narrowed. His voice came out flat, sharp as a blade. Suho, why are you dating? Hey, middle schooler. His father spoke, glaring at Suho. Cha-Heian gasped softly and covered her mouth, shoulders shaking with suppressed laughter. Suho nearly tripped over his own feet. She's not father, come on. Don't say it like that. His face burned red as he threw his hands up in wild protest. Her name's Frieren. She's an elf. She's older than you. Jinwoo froze. Slowly, painfully, he turned his gaze toward the quiet elf, who merely blinked once in acknowledgement. Frieren tilted her head ever so slightly, her voice calm and cool. I've lived for over 1,000 years. Compared to me, you're the child here. Father, she teased at the end by calling Jinwoo father. The silence that followed was absolute. Then Cha couldn't hold it anymore. Her laughter rang out through the shadows like bells, bright and uncontrollable. She leaned into Jinwoo's arm, her whole body shaking. Suho folded his arms smugly, glaring at his father. See, told you. Jinwoo rubbed his temple with 2 fingers, sighing like a man who had fought gods and monsters but found his greatest battle in parenting. Of all the people in all the worlds, my son brings home someone who makes me feel underaged. Frieren blinked again, unbothered. It happens. Cha was crying from laughter now, while Suho grinned in triumph and Jinwoo muttered something about having raised an idiot lolicon. I should just adopt Izuku Midoriya. Sung Jinwoo spoke, already done with dealing with his own son, whom he sees as someone who's into young girls. It just happens that the said girl is already older than even him. Hey, I'm still here, father. Suho yelled. Back to Izuku, who was still training his body and mind outside the cave, just suddenly sneezed. Why do I feel like I'm some people's topic? He said after he sneezed. Then his eyes lingered towards Astrid, who was lovingly looking at him while rubbing her flat stomach. Then he blitzed, severing space itself, and appeared behind Astrid and hugged her from behind, which startled her at first, but now she's kinda used to it by now. You're PRGNNT, aren't you, babe? He said, already aware of the growing child within Astrid's belly. It was theirs. Their hard work and love blossomed into a child. How? Astrid asked, startled by her. Izuku knew that she is PRGNNT. You're not really very subtle, Astrid. I heard what my lieges said to you. He also chuckled a little and looked at the other side of the island, sensing where the family of his liege is, and how my liege called as underage by his own daughter-in-law. But why is the young monarch into young-looking women, especially an elf? Middle school-looking elf? Time skip 1 month. The streets of Mizuta-fu were restless tonight, sirens echoing faintly in the distance, neon signs buzzing against the dark. Izuku's boots tapped quietly on the cracked pavement as he moved through the alleys, shadows whispering at his heels. Patrols had become routine again. Villains still crawled out of the cracks, even without the League or All for One to rally them. A scream cut through the night. Izuku didn't hesitate. His body blurred, shadows erupting as he launched forward. 2 villains had cornered a family in a narrow back street, their cruel smiles lit by a flickering streetlight. Not on my watch. No innocent BLD will be shed under my watch. Izuku muttered. The fight ended quickly. Shadows bound one villain, while Izuku's fist slammed the other into the wall hard enough to rattle bricks. The family huddled together, trembling, but safe. He knelt, softening his voice as he helped them up. You're safe now. Go home. As they hurried away, Izuku lingered, watching the mother hold her child tight, the father shielding them both. Something tugged at his chest. He closed his eyes for a moment, and in the glow of imagination he saw Astrid, her laugh, her stubborn smile, and in her arms, a child with his freckles and her fierce blue eyes. Izuku shook his head, a small smile ghosting his lips. One day, he thought. For now, he turned back to the shadows, hunting again. The night was still, unnaturally so. Izuku stood in the heart of the city's quiet ruins, the faint glow of neon lights painting his shadowed figure. His patrol had ended, but the silence carried weight as though the world itself was holding its breath. Then it struck, a pulse deep in his chest, violent, searing, ancient. Izuku staggered, dropping to one knee as veins burned with streaks of violet and crimson. His shadows thrashed like chained beasts suddenly unbound. And then came the voice, commanding, relentless, marshal of shadows, bearer of destruction. Izuku's vision blurred. His breath caught as the world cracked apart. When it reformed, he stood within an endless inferno. The air was molten, the sky itself aflame. A colossal figure rose from the fire, his scales crimson, his eyes blazing like suns. The Monarch of Destruction Antares. Izuku's instincts screamed to kneel, but his will rooted him in place. Antares' voice thundered, sharp as a blade. "Stand tall, Marshal. Do you hear them?" And Izuku did. Echoes pressed into his mind, roars turned into whimpers, wings chained, wills broken. The cries of kin enslaved. Our kind suffer in silence. Chains bind them. Fear poisons them. Their freedom stolen. The monarch's gaze bore down on him, merciless. "You carry my flame, my legacy. You are their king now, their commander, their liberator." The flames surged, the vision cracking under its own weight. "Rise, Marshal of Shadows. Save our kin. Liberate them, or see them perish." The inferno shattered. Izuku fell back into himself, drenched in sweat, his chest heaving. Shadows whipped violently around him, but now crimson fire streaked through their depths. He rose slowly, teal eyes glowing with flecks of burning red. "Then I'll lead them. I'll free them. No one deserves to control our kin. We are proud and free species. We are dragons." Behind him, the shadows stretched outward. Vast wings of dragon fire and shadow. The Marshal of Shadows had the strings of shadows cut, and a crown was rested upon Izuku Midoriya's head. 2 sets of dragon wings sprouted from his back. He has awakened. As the whimpers and plea of his kin kindled his rage. He is here, the Monarch of Destruction, Izuku Midoriya. The Shadow Realm was calm, its soldiers standing in their endless formation like always. Sung Jinwoo sat on his throne, one arm propped up lazily on the armrest, while Cha Heian poured him tea. Then the air rippled. A strange pulse ran through the shadows, faint but distinct. Jinwoo's eyes flicked up. He felt it immediately. "Huh?" Cha paused mid-pour, raising a brow. "What is it?" Jinwoo leaned back, smirking faintly. The kid finally woke it up. "Antares fragment." Cha blinked. "Izuku?" "Yeah, I've been waiting for this. It just happens his catalyst is the plea of his own people, the dragons." Jinwoo said, as if it were the most normal thing in the world. He scratched his chin. "Took him long enough, though." She studied his expression, the way the corner of his mouth tugged upward. "You're proud?" He shrugged, but the smirk didn't leave his face. "Of course I am. My marshal just leveled up." Cha let out a soft laugh, shaking her head. "You talk like a proud dad." She teased. "Maybe I am, maybe I sometimes feel like one." Jinwoo replied, sipping his tea with an amused look. "But the boy's strong." He stood tall in front of Antares. That's all I needed to know. The soldiers in the realm stood quietly, as if waiting. Varu tilted his insect head from afar, clicking curiously. "See." Jinwoo gestured lazily toward them. "Even. They're curious about their junior." Cha chuckled again. "You're going to spoil him with that kind of talk." Let him have it," Jinwoo said with a grin. "Kids earned it after all." Astrid gripped the edge of the wooden table as another wave of nausea hit her. Her whole body shivered with the effort of holding it back, but in the end, she had to stumble toward the basin nearby. "Ugh. Curse this," she muttered between coughs, her voice weak, but still laced with that Viking stubbornness. "Morning sickness, they called it. Feels more like a dragon chewing my insides." A shadowy hand appeared at her side, steadying her shoulder. She didn't need to look, she knew who it belonged to. One of Izuku's night-class shadows, towering and clad in dark armor that shimmered faintly even in the dim light. The knight didn't speak, but it adjusted the basin closer, moving with careful precision, almost like it was worried. Astrid groaned, wiping her mouth with the back of her hand. "You're a better helper than half the Vikings I grew up with." She chuckled faintly, though her face was pale. "Who'd have thought I'd be comforted by a night shadow?" The knight tilted its head slightly, then moved to fetch the water jug, pouring carefully into a cup before handing it to her. Its massive gauntlet somehow held the fragile thing like it was precious. Astrid took it, sipping slowly. "Thanks. I guess you lot really do take after your MSTR, huh? Always worrying." Her free hand drifted to her stomach, and despite the exhaustion, a tiny, determined smile curved her lips. "He's not here right now, so you'll have to stand guard for both of us." The Shadow Knight gave a slow, deliberate bow, as if swearing an oath right then and there. Astrid leaned back, closing her eyes for a moment. Even sick, even weary, she didn't feel alone. That's when the cave shadows stirred. A ripple spread across the floor like ink spilled on stone, and out stepped Izuku. His presence filled the cavern instantly, horns catching the dim light, emerald eyes scanning the scene. He looked otherworldly, regal, yet his expression softened the moment it landed on Astrid. "Astrid, babe, what's wrong?" Izuku asked, his voice laced with concern as he crossed the distance. The knights stepped back, bowing their heads in silence, making way for him. Astrid gave a half-smile, tired but touched. "Your soldiers, they've been helping me while you're gone." She glanced at the shadows, and then back to him. "Guess they've gotten used to cleaning up after me." Izuku crouched in front of her, gently brushing a strand of hair from her face. "You don't need to force yourself. Next time, let me know right away. I don't care how far I am. I'll come running." Her hand found his, gripping tight. "I know, babe, I know, and I thank you for that," she whispered. Behind them, the knights stood like silent guardians, unfazed, as if this scene was already a familiar routine. "You can't defeat all of us, Shadow Monarch. We'll destroy what's important to you." And the plot thickens once again. Izuku lay sprawled across the bed, his hair sticking out in every direction like a forest of green moss. His quiet breathing filled the room, completely unaware of the world around him. Astrid sat at his side, propping her chin on her hand, watching him with a mischievous little grin. She leaned closer and whispered, "Wakey, wakey, eggs and bakey," before gently poking his cheek with her finger. Izuku mumbled something incomprehensible and buried his face deeper into the pillow. "Oh no, don't think you can escape me," Astrid teased, poking his cheek again, then his nose. "Come on, Villain Slayer, Shadow Marshal, Dragon Monarch, whatever title you've got time to wake up," she teased. "5 more minutes." Izuku muttered, his voice muffled. Astrid smirked, leaning down so her braid brushed against his face. "That you're lucky you're cute when you sleep, or I'd drag you out of this bed myself." Izuku cracked one eye open, blinking blearily at her. "Astrid?" "Yes?" she asked sweetly. "You're still poking me." She poked him again with a grin. "And I won't stop until you get up." Izuku groaned, but the corners of his mouth tugged into a sleepy smile. "You're relentless. That's what you love about me," Astrid teased, brushing her hand through his messy hair. Izuku chuckled softly and closed his eyes again. "Yeah, it really is." Astrid sighed, finally resting her hand gently against his cheek. "All right, fine, 5 more minutes. But just 5. Izuku was already half asleep again, and Astrid couldn't help but laugh quietly. For all his power and burdens, in moments like this, he was just Izuku, her Izuku. Astrid poked his cheek one last time, watching his lips twitch into another sleepy smile. "You're impossible," she whispered, shaking her head. Izuku had already drifted back into slumber, his breathing steady, his freckles soft in the morning light. Astrid stayed there for a while, hands still against his cheek, her grin softening into something warmer. "You really do look peaceful like this," she murmured. "And cute, and all of it is all mine." Her fingers lingered on Izuku's cheeks, tracing his jawline. She yawned suddenly, surprising herself. "Ugh, don't you dare drag me into this nap of yours." But the pillow looked comfortable. Izuku's warmth radiated like a campfire, and before she knew it, Astrid shifted closer, laying her head right next to his shoulder. "I'm only staying for a minute," she told herself, her eyelids heavy. "Just 1 minute." Izuku stirred faintly in his sleep, instinctively wrapping an arm around her. Astrid's lips curved into a small smile even as her breathing slowed. And just like that, the tough, stubborn Viking warrior and the relentless young dragon monarch drifted off together, tangled in the same quiet dream. New Berk. The night winds of Berk carried the faint smell of salt and smoke, reminders of battles past. Hiccup stood at the edge of the cliffs, his gaze fixed on the horizon where the sea met the stars. Beside him, Elsa let her fingers trail along the cool stone, a faint shimmer of frost marking her absent-minded touch. "You're thinking too much again," Elsa said softly, her voice carrying that calm weight he'd come to love. Hiccup gave a faint chuckle. "It's hard not to. Argon's forces are moving. If those bewilderbeasts clash with the dragons here, Berk won't stand a chance." Elsa stepped closer, her hand brushing against his. "Then it's a good thing Berk isn't standing alone anymore." A playful glint entered her eyes as a snowflake drifted between her fingers. "You've got me." Hiccup finally turned, meeting her gaze. There was strength there, quiet, unwavering, and sharp as winter. For a moment, the weight in his chest eased. I lost Astrid once, he admitted quietly, almost to himself. I won't lose you too, Elsa. Not to Argon, not to anyone. Elsa's smile softened. She placed her hand on his cheek, frost curling gently against his skin without hurting him. Then don't think of losing. Think of fighting. Together. The words sank deep. Hiccup squeezed her hand, determination rekindling. Together, then, as they leaned closer to each other. Their lips collided. Above them, dragons stirred uneasily in the distance, sensing the storm that was to come. Together, till the end. They both spoke as the warm embrace of love welcomed them. Far from New Berk, in the jagged remains of a broken island, Argon the Destroyer stood atop a ridge of blackened stone. His cloak of dragon hide snapped in the bitter wind, and below him, the earth trembled with the movements of his army. Dragons. Hundreds, no, thousands of them, each bound not by chain nor steel, but by the sheer force of his will. Their eyes glowed faintly. Bewildered beasts towered like living fortresses, their tusks glistening with frost that froze rivers at a mere breath. At the heart of it all, the purple death shifted in its slumber, the ground cracking beneath its massive coils. Argon raised his hand, his voice booming like thunder across the valley. Soon, the brood of Berk shall know their folly. Their dragons will kneel, their halls will burn, and their BLD will salt the earth. By my hand, by my wrath, they shall be unmade. A vassal, clad in furs and bone armor, dropped to his knees. My Jarl, scouts say Hiccup Haddock readies his people. Shall we march now? Argon's lips twisted into a cruel smile. Let the pup bare his teeth. Let him rally his kin and clutch at false hope. When I come, I'll grind his spirit neath my heel, as I'll grind his people to dust. He will learn what it means to stand against the Destroyer. The bewildered beasts bellowed in unison, a sound that shook the skies like the drums of war. Argon spread his arms wide, glorying in the might he commanded. Mark it well, the age of Berk ends, and the age of Argon begins. The great hall of New Berk buzzed with low chatter, the sound of crackling fire, and the occasional clank of mugs on tables. Hiccup and Elsa sat side by side at the head of the table, a small map of the archipelago spread out before them. Toothless and Stormfly lay curled near the hearth, though both dragons stirred uneasily, sensing something in the air. The doors suddenly slammed open, nearly flying off their hinges. We're back, Snotlout shouted, stumbling in first, his helmet askew and his chest puffed out, as if he had just slain 10 dragons himself. Behind him, Roughnut and Toughnut half ran, half tripped over each other, covered in soot and smelling faintly of singed fish. By Thor's stinky socks, Toughnut wheezed. We almost got roasted into kebabs. No thanks to you two idiots. Snotlout snapped, glaring at them. Do you always have to light something on fire when we're supposed to be sneaky? Roughnut threw up her hands. Hey, the sheep looked at me funny. You can't trust sheep, they're spies for Argon. I'm telling you. Spies, Snotlout groaned, rubbing his temples. Hiccup, I swear, if they weren't so good at running away screaming, I'd have left them behind. Hiccup stood, his eyes narrowing. Tell me what you saw. Snotlout straightened, his usual bravado dropping as he recalled the sight. An army, Hiccup. Not just a pack of wild dragons, an army. Thousands of them, following Argon like. He was their chief, and the bewildered beasts. There are more than one, like the info months ago. The twins leaned in together, their voices overlapping. And the purple death. Yeah, it's there too. Huge, scary, smells like burning rocks, yeah. If rocks are purple. Elsa's hand tightened slightly on the table, frost creeping along the edges of the map as her magic responded to her unease. So it's true. Argon is gathering everything he can. Elsa spoke grimly. Snotlout nodded grimly, though he tried to puff out his chest again. But hey, don't worry. You've got me. Snotlout the fearless. And maybe the twins too, if they don't set themselves on fire first. Hey, Roughnut and Toughnut said in unison. Hiccup looked at them all, his expression hardening. He reached over, gently brushing Elsa's hand, grounding himself. Then it settled. Argon's coming for Berk. We need to be ready for everything. The room went quiet, the weight of war sinking in, even as Snotlout and the twins continued to bicker softly in the background. Near Berk in an island. A looming red-scaled dragon landed on the island. Is it an ally or a foe? My brethren, my monarch grants you mercy. So, this was the end of this series. Stay tuned for next part of this series, and if you like this video, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel. Until next time.